Dan, welcome to Beast TV and welcome back to Newsweek. And you're now rejoining our company.
It's great to be here.
After your 2-year detour at Yahoo.
It's great, not that I just can't visit this fabulous studio and this great environment, but that I'll be able to come here every day.
It's so exciting for us. We're thrilled. So there's been so much going on in the financial environment in the last few weeks. I mean, Barclays and the rate fixing scandal, and HSBC laundering money, and RBS refusing to deal with regulators. I mean, what is happening? Is this another explosion of bad ethics? Tell us, explain.
I think there are two things going on here. One is 4 years after our financial crisis here in the US, it is completely uncontained everywhere else. And we're seeing this with the LIBOR scandal, which is hard to distill, but basically it meant that a bunch of banks were sitting around and fixing the price of a very important product. You have HSBC, another British-based bank, accused of money laundering. You have RBS, which is now owned by the British government, that is sort of not cooperating with the Canadian government in their investigation. You have JPMorgan Chase and its multi-billion-dollar loss. So on the one hand, the banks are still sort of too much with us, right? They're all in our face with these scandals, rotten cultures, et cetera. And on the other hand, their footprint is actually sort of shrinking. They have less leverage. Goldman Sachs reported their earnings this week. Nobody noticed because a lot of air has kind of gone out of their trading balloon. And the banks they're sort of our burden. We prop them up for years and years. We have to tend to their needs because if they collapse, they tank our economy. And yet there's something about the culture of them, and it's not contained to New York, and it's not just contained to London.
My theory is that it's just that they're too big to manage. Not too big to fail, but too big to manage. And that actually the C-suites really don't have any idea of what's happening in their own banks. What do you think about that?
Well, there are all these stories, remember, in the crisis where the tales of sort of Robert Rubin, who was at Citigroup and was the vice chairman, not knowing what a CDO was. And so they had this kind of plausible deniability. These CEOs would say, well, I don't get into the swamp of derivatives trading. These details are all beyond me. I'll just take credit for the successes. And then when they fail, you can sort of blame it on the people who are lower down. Look, people successfully manage very large enterprises all the time. IBM, HP, Amazon, Walmart. There are all these examples. And then, in those places, you have problems that pop up. But in banks, it's this combination of size, complexity, and then these incentives that really attract the sort of people who are really interested only in making money. That's what they think about when they get up in the morning and when they go to sleep at night. And that sort of system allows people and rewards them for taking those risks.
Dan, it's terrific that you've come back to Newsweek and the Daily Beast. And tell us really a little bit about how you're going to go about your new energetic position.
Well, it's very simple, covering the global economy. The great story of our age is really, it's Asia standing up after years of being downtrodden. It's sub-Saharan Africa joining the market economy. It's Latin America figuring out a way to join the 20th century. These are all stories.
21st century, I hope.
No, I think they're still trying to get to the 20th century.
Okay, good.
21st century hasn't been so great for everybody else. I think many of them may want to stay in the 20th century. And when I was coming out of college, the way you understood the world was through the lens of the Cold War and international relations. And I think the way you make sense out of what's happening, not just in the world, but what's happening at home, is by understanding what's going on in the business and the economics. This is the lens through which we view the world. And it's not just about international relations, it's really about what interest rate we pay on our mortgages. It's what affects our politics. The great political story of the 2008 campaign, aside from sort of Obama coming from nowhere, was really the financial crisis. This time around, it's going to be the fate of the economy, sluggish economy, deleveraging, financial regulation, the impact of healthcare reform. So all these fascinating stories at home, abroad, that you can really best understand through the lens of business and economics. And what we have here is the international edition of the magazine, the domestic edition of the magazine, the Daily Beast, all the foreign language editions. It's a tremendous platform, not just for a writer who wants to get the biggest possible audience and the best possible access, but we also have this kind of constellation of correspondents around the world who can really help us understand it. And so to be able to edit some of that, help coordinate some of the coverage, and continue writing my own online columns for the magazine, articles, and doing video, it's a great opportunity.
Well, we're very, very pleased and excited to have you with us, Dan. Welcome.